Hi, it's Dwyer, gamblersadvisory.com, dwyervip.com. Today is June the 4th, 2017. Remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. Well, let's focus a little bit on the light heavyweight division. Right? Wow. Adonis Stevenson is 39 years old. Kovalev is 34 years old. Andrzej Ward is 33 years old. Is this a boxing division or is this an old folks home? Right? I'm a little bit surprised that there aren't some younger guys who aren't making more noise at light heavy. Keep in mind, Pascal and Alvarez are both in their 30s. Right? Even Andrzej Fonfara, 29 years old. Well, let's talk about the fight yesterday, and then let's segue with some further comments on Ward Kovalev, right? You know, Stevenson has an 80% knockout ratio. As you watch Stevenson, you're really watching Manny Pacquiao, aren't you? Both guys have left hands from God, right? Stevenson, I don't even consider to be two-handed. His right jab looks perfunctory to me. Doesn't look like a real jab. No, Stevenson is jumping around the ring, right? That's what he does. He moves around the ring. He jumps around the ring. He's not trying to get inside on you. He actually wants spacing. He's jumping around the ring, and he does so that he can set up a left hand. He's a southpaw. And it's amazing here because you saw why he's champion here. This was a rematch. You would have thought Andrzej Fonfara would have known Stevenson better, right? Didn't Fonfara go the distance with Stevenson the first time? Well, interestingly enough, Andrzej Fonfara is there on his front foot. He has Stevenson on his back foot. And the champ on his back foot gets off, guess what? A left hand, right? It's not a straight left, it's a left hook. This fight was effectively over. That punch lands in the first round. Fonfara never gets his balance back. Fonfara is soon on the canvas, right? 90% of the reason why he was on the canvas was that punch, right? Stevenson follows up. But then when you get to the second round, it's even freakier. Because Stevenson, who, again, is a guy with a dynamite left hand, right? It's one of boxing's best punches, is able to land that left with regularity. I know Fonfara thought he could continue, right? The referee wisely waved off the bout. In essence, Fonfara didn't seem to have an answer, not even a remote one, for stopping Stevenson's left hand. It looked like Fonfara's plan was to flush Stevenson out of the pocket. But understand, Stevenson is a guy who is episodic, right? He's jumping around the ring. If you get him backing up, guess what? Stevenson is just waiting for the opportunity to drop that foot and come in with that left hand. Also, Stevenson is a master at his footwork because Stevenson makes sure that when he throws that left, right, and he's all in on the left hand, as he follows through, he's outside of where you are. In other words, he has his right foot outside of your left foot when he throws the punch, and then he rolls to make sure that he's not exposed after throwing the punch. Right now, Stevenson's work, in my opinion, keeps getting better and better. Understand, legacy-wise, Stevenson has a win over former cruiserweight champion Tony Bellew. Think about it. I know Tony wants Stevenson to meet him somewhere between cruiserweight and light heavy so he could have a chance to redeem himself. By the way, Stevenson beats Bellew by stoppage. Right? Dominant performance. But understand, at 39 years old, If Stevenson gains the weight to fight Bellew, he's practically giving up his light heavyweight career, right? As we learned with Kell Brook, when you move up in weight, it's very hard, especially for older fighters. And Stevenson's much older than even Kell Brook, to then turn around and drop back down in weight, especially with a hitter like Kovalev in the division. Right? So, I don't think Bellew ever gets an opportunity to redeem himself against Stevenson. Let's remember, too, Stevenson knocked out Chad Dawson, right? Beat Tavares Cloud. Both of those guys are former champions. Right? So Stevenson right now, who's been champion for years, is really putting together a Hall of Fame resume. I do agree with Jean Pascal that Stevenson hasn't fought all the fights he could. Right? It's amazing that both he and Kovalev were champions at light heavy for years and never met in the ring. It's crazy to believe that Stevenson is in Canada with Pascal and Boutte and never makes it into the ring against either of them, even though they're all contemporaries. So I'll agree with some critics of Stevenson who say Stevenson has been a bit protected. But understand, Stevenson did sign to fight Kovalev, right? According to rumor, Kovalev is the one who pulled out of that match, and Stevenson's win over Tony Bellew is going to continue to look more impressive the more things Tony Bellew does, right? So kudos to Stevenson. He certainly has put to rest the dialogue that Andrzej's Fonfara looked great in his first fight and would be able to pick up where he left off in the rematch. Fonfara was never in this one. Now let's segue to more comments on Ward Kovalev. Right now, I made a video yesterday, and many of you, and I'm going to have to be vague and ambiguous here for legal reasons, right? Many of you believe that this fight is not going to be a drug-free event, right? You're looking past the fighters to the nutritional experts advising the fighters. You're also looking at the fact that at light heavy, Fonfara, who I mentioned earlier in this video, once tested positive for a banned substance, right? Lucien Boutte tested positive for a banned substance after his draw against Badou Jack. That literally then got wiped out and became a DQ win for Badou Jack, right? There's talk about who's enrolled in VADA, who's not enrolled in VADA. People also remember that for the first Jean Pascal fight, Kovalev did not want to agree to random drug testing, right? There are some online here who are talking about changed physiques and things like that. I'll leave it up to you to investigate all of this. Just understand, though, right? While I myself believe that PED use is rampant in boxing, while I question even some of the biggest fights that have recently happened because of the physiques of some of the fighters, right? I also realize that using PEDs, in my opinion at least, right, has a downside. A lot of what makes fighters great is their calmness in the middle of adversity, right? Think James Toney. He's fighting Evander Holyfield. Whatever Holyfield's doing, you got the feeling the fight was in slow motion for James Toney, right? Sometimes being, by the way, Toney himself busted for banned substance. But you just get the feeling that part of boxing is being able to stay calm in the middle of adversity. Right now, it's my understanding that PEDs can lead to roid rage, can lead to emotions being out of whack, right? You're a fighter, you're normally calm, suddenly you're on some performance-enhancing drug, right? Are you going to have the same perception, the same mental edge that you would have if you weren't juicing, right? I wonder. Also, while PEDs will enhance stamina, right? I believe they take away from fluidity. So I've looked at fighters. Shane Mosley, who I believe took EPO and has admitted to taking things like that for the rematch against Oscar De La Hoya. I thought Mosley looked much better in the first fight against Oscar De La Hoya than he did the second fight. I believe when you're juicing, that starts to play games with your mind. You start to believe that you're stronger than you are. You start to change your game. You start to go away from fluid volume and you start to try to load up on shots. Right? Well, if the fluid volume got you to the top of the hill, got you to the top ranking, to the championship, and you start messing that up by using performance-enhancing drugs to bulk up your body's not even the same. Right? To bulk up your body and to, change your physique and to change what you do. Well, at the top levels here, changing what you do could get you hurt. Right? If you got to the top levels cleanly, without performance-enhancing drugs, why would you want to mess that up by now taking performance-enhancing drugs that might change your body, change your emotional mind state, right? Just change who you are. So, I do believe in a sport where countless guys have been busted for juicing, right? Just look at the heavyweight division, for crying out loud, right? Too many guys have been busted using banned substances, right? The light heavyweight division, right? Lucien Boutte, Fonfara. In this world, right? I hope we all realize that using PEDs, while it certainly will help some athletes, right, it can also hurt some athletes. Let me just say too, and I'm a big-time baseball fan, during the steroid era in baseball, and we'll pretend that that era has ended, right, players started getting provocative injuries. Because when your body takes on extra muscle, right, sometimes your body's not ready for the extra muscle. So you get weird muscle pulls, right? There was a baseball player who suffered a muscle pull under his underarm. I'm not kidding, right? These are the kind of injuries you don't hear about unless guys, in my opinion, are playing games with their hormones. Right? I can tell you too that one of the big problems with juicing, and I've seen it watching American football, is that guys who were on the juice, who then get off the juice, really lose a lot psychologically. Right? Maybe the juice was helping them physically, maybe it wasn't. But they then became psychologically dependent on the juice. Right? Understand the way juicing works too. Right? The juicers are trying to stay one step ahead of the testers. And so they're on what's called cycles. Right? And I'm just telling you that it starts to play with guys where you start to wonder if you've cycled the right way to not just beat the drug test, but to be at your absolute best during the event. And boxing is an event-based business, right? You have to be on fight night, right? If you're not on fight night, you're going to have problems, right? So, I welcome the scrutiny on any fight. In terms of whether or not the fighters are juicing, who are the people around the fighters? Have those people been involved with fighters who have failed drug tests? I believe that's a fair inquiry. But let me just say, right, with regard to the styles of these two fighters, I don't believe juicing's gonna make a difference here. Right? I really don't. Based on the styles of Ward and Kovalev, if either guy is juicing, right? And I know Kovalev is on VADA, but let's face it, that hasn't stopped others, right? People like, I believe, Alexander Povetkin busted through the VADA protocol, right? If either guy, and I don't mean to single out Kovalev here, right? I want you to do your own research online, right? Find out what people are saying about back acne and things like that, right? Use your own two eyes. Look at the pictures. If guys are in their 30s, it's highly unlikely that a guy in his 30s is suddenly going to start looking more ripped than he did in his mid-20s, right? I just don't feel, given the styles of these guys, that the juicing's going to make much of a difference if it's happening, right? Further, if someone has just taken up juicing, I don't think it necessarily is going to help them. It might actually hurt their games if the rest of their careers have been clean. So, let me thank everyone for the comments on juicing. I hope you keep them coming whether or not you agree with me, right? We're all part of a boxing community here, and we're just talking about, these guys and whether or not fighters are juicing, and if they are, whether or not they're going to get an advantage. But I do believe that juicing has a downside, right? I believe fighters shorten their careers when they juice. I believe fighters then start to become psychologically dependent on juicing. I also feel that fighters might be under the misimpression that they hit harder on the juice. I found that punchers are born, they're not made, right? So food for thought. Anyway, that's how I see it. Let me hear from you. I hope you leave your comments in the comment section to this video. Thanks for stopping by.